Jason Voorhees is one of the most savage serial killers in the slasher genre of movies, and I'm going to find out which version of Jason is the most dangerous to be around. I mean, being around Jason Voorhees full stop is dangerous, but you get the picture. Let me get this out of the way first and foremost. The answer is obviously Uber Jason. Hands down, no contest here. But I'm still going to figure out each and every other version of Jason. I'll be pitting them against one another and taking a look at their strengths and weaknesses. And obviously, spoiler alert, Jason is the same killer across the movies apart from parts 1 and 5, but of course you already knew that. The best way to go about this in my mind is to just go through the Jasons in the movies in chronological order. As I don't care who you are, but Zombie Jason will most certainly 9 times out of 10 kill a human Jason, and to show why, here's an example. In this scene from part 6, Jason is shot point blank several times with a shotgun and a revolver. And while the shotgun blasts are powerful enough to knock him down for a few seconds, the revolver shots basically do nothing. He even gets shot in the head and keeps pushing forward like a tank. And in this scene from part 3, he gets stabbed in the knee and this incapacitates him for a few seconds and leaves him limping for the rest of the movie. You want more proof? Too bad, we're moving on. Before I dive in, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to get a free old man, and it also helps your odds of making it out of Camp Crystal Lake alive. Okay, so let's start off with part 1 Jason. Yes, I'm including part 1 Jason, and here's why. First off, you could say Jason wasn't in the first movie, that was just a dream, and you're right, but I'd argue his presence is still here. After all, that dream is a manifestation of Alice's fear and trauma from everything she'd experienced that night. Fear and trauma can have a very real effect on people, and it was Jason in a sense that caused this nightmare, through the actions and words of Mrs. Voorhees. But ultimately, this version of Jason killed no one. So, in conclusion, Jason from part 1 isn't very dangerous. He has 0 kills and can't really deal any major harm, but he could definitely induce nightmares and PTSD. Not that they aren't major problems in their own way. So, part 2 Jason right out the gate beats part 1. I mean, part 1 is just a nightmare after all. Part 2 Jason kicks things into gear with old Baghead Jason. In the movie, he slaughters either 9 or 10 people based on whether or not Paul is dead. In true Friday the 13th fashion, going forward, just like Mrs. Voorhees aka Pamela, Jason takes on the habit of stalking his victims and picking them off one by one, and manages to kill up to either 8 or 9 people before being discovered by Paul and Ginny. Once discovered, a struggle ensues which leads to a cat and mouse chase between Jason and Ginny, with Jason proving to be both a huge threat and somewhat incapable at times. Eventually, he's stabbed with a machete through the shoulder, and that's a wrap. He's about average size in this movie, so no bigger than just over 6 foot, maybe 6'1" or 6'2". He doesn't appear to be overly strong, however. He does get the upper hand on Paul during their scuffle. He seems to get right to the point with his kills, and while he's somewhat creative, he definitely has more fun with his kills later on. Now on to part 3 Jason, and he definitely ups the ante here. Not only is he much bigger, he shows off ridiculous feats of strength, kills more brutally, and overall takes the win over part 2 Jason. Like part 3 Jason is able to pop Rick's skull so hard his eyeball pops out, and he's able to launch him through the window and across the room at the same level of effort it would take to anyone else to throw a brick. Jason again picks off his victims one by one, but he's able to have fun with each kill. But not only that, the brutality of his kills is definitely increasing. I mean, he launches Chuck into the fuse box, which fries him to a crisp, but it also messes with the lights. Another example is how he cuts Ali's hand off before proceeding to hack him to bits with the machete. He kills a total of 12 people, and while he is stopped by Chris a few times before taking an axe to the head, he can at times seem a little stumbly overall. But overall, he's a force to be reckoned with. But he's definitely beat by part 4 Jason, as part 4 Jason is built like a brick shithouse. I mean seriously, this may be the most brutal Jason to be around, and he is definitely the best contender as far as human Jason goes. Not that Jason is actually human in any of these movies, but there is a distinct difference between Jason before and after part 6. Part 4 Jason is able to just plow through doors like they're made of tissue, and he's able to withstand some serious damage in the movie. For example, he takes an old TV to the head, and while this does incapacitate him for a while, he's up and at him not too long afterwards. Also, he takes a machete to the hand, and it splits his hand in two, and all this does is cause him to gawk at his hand for a second or two. While part 3 was able to launch Rick through a window, part 4 is able to do this multiple times throughout the movie. He also ups the ante when it comes to the fear factor, as my god, when he kills Rob, that whole sequence is genuinely terrifying. mostly thanks to the performance by Eric Anderson and the way the scene was built up to and shot. Part 4 Jason easily stomps Part 3 Jason in my honest opinion. I'm going to stop here and acknowledge the fact that with each film entry, Jason gets more dangerous, stronger or better. However, that changes as of right now. Now, spoiler alert for those that don't know, but Part 5 Jason isn't actually Jason. It's an imposter called Roy Burns. Roy is a disgruntled father who uses the Jason persona to go on a killing spree, killing 17 people after the death of his son by the hands of a mentally unwell half-away patient. Now, the reason I'm including Roy is because he embodies Jason, and if you've never seen the movie before, 90% of viewers are convinced this is actually Jason right up until the reveal. Now, having said that, he is smaller than Jason from previous movies, and he is considerably less strong and durable, but this is where Roy makes use of his stalking. He definitely has fun with his kills, and they don't look the slightest bit painless. However, I'd argue that it'd be a hell of a lot easier defeating or escaping Roy than it would be Jason. Not only that, but every other Jason apart from Part 1 would make easy work of this guy. So, having said that, going forward, Part 4 Jason still holds the lead, but maybe not for long. On to Part 6 Jason. And this is where things get interesting, as this is the first zombie Jason. And as I've already mentioned, he's able to take gunshots to the head from point blank range. But not only that, he gets a shovel broken over the back of his head. He's able to punch through a man's chest, rip a man's arm off, cut 3 heads off with a single swipe, and fold the sheriff in half with ease. He's that invulnerable and dangerous, the only way he can be stopped is by chaining him to the bottom of the lake. While it's fair to say Part 4 Jason is definitely the most dangerous human Jason, Part 6 easily takes the win here. Here's where things get a bit tricky for me, as I go back and forth between whether or not Part 6, Part 7 or Part 8 wins, as they're pretty much on par with one another. So let me discuss Part 7 and Part 8 and compare the three. Now, Part 7 Jason has spent some time in the lake. It's been several years and he is very rotten and decayed, with bone exposed. Having said that, he's definitely stronger than any human Jason, but the unfortunate thing is a lot of his kills are off screen or cutaways due to the MPAA being a big old bag of dicks. But still, we have a good idea of his feats of strength, and we do see him endure a fair bit of damage at the hands of Tina. He's able to crush Ben's head, and he also performs the sleeping bag kill, and again, he punches through a man's chest. However, he does get pulled to the bottom of the lake by Ghost Dad. Whereas Part 8 Jason literally takes the brutality of his kills up a notch. He punches a lump of hot coal through a man's stomach and punches Julius's head off with little to no effort. Literally, when it comes down to it, it's going to be a personal preference, but it could easily go either way, with Part 6 and Part 8 having a slight edge over Part 7. And between Part 6 and Part 8, it's neck and neck. But I'm gonna have to give it to Part 6 Jason, based on my own personal opinion. However, as I said, this can go either way. There's no wrong answer here, but for the sake of the video, Part 6 Jason is still in the lead. Now then, Part 9 Jason, which can be referred to as Demon Jason, due to the fact he possesses people. Well, first and foremost, he does not beat Part 6 in a million years. We never really see any impressive feats of strength, and he's not overly brutal with his kills. To be fair, he's not in his own body for 90% of the movie, so it's harder to say. However, the fact he can possess people gives him points due to the fact it'd be harder to spot him coming if he were in that state. But in regular Jason mode, I don't know. I'm gonna need to think about where he's gonna go on the list, but it ain't at number 1. Part 6 Jason is still in the lead. Now then, we have Jason X and Uber Jason. Yes, I know Jason X is the title of the movie, but I'm going to refer to this Jason as Jason X, as he's different than Uber Jason for sure. The tough thing about this is finding where he fits in comparison with the rest. However, as I stated at the start of the video, Uber Jason wins the top spot in the list, but more on that later. Jason X displays some serious brutality with his kills, and takes on futuristic space commandos. The brutality of the liquid nitrogen head smash, and Jason literally cutting Kicker in half with one swipe, gives him the edge over Part 6 Jason. I'm sorry, love it or hate it, Jason X beats Part 6 in my mind. And then there's Uber Jason. And do I really have to explain why he takes the #1 spot? Look, I'll list a few reasons why, but I'm not going to go too much into detail. If you want to learn more, I'll leave a link in the description to a Reddit post or something like that. Uber Jason is basically bulletproof. He whacks the head off an android, walks through blast doors, and can survive the vacuum of space. Now, compare Uber Jason with Baghead Jason, or Part 3, or Part 4, or whatever other Jason you like. At the end of the day, Uber Jason is simply stronger, more durable, and probably more brutal, which is why he keeps the #1 spot hands down. Next up, we've got Jason from Freddy vs. Jason, who I'll refer to as Part 11 Jason. This version of Jason is built like a damn powerhouse. The sheer strength is undeniable. Thanks to the movie's cartoonish inclusion of bodies flying across football field lengths of space, the fact he can launch bodies through the air with a machete swipe means two things. One, Jason is strong as shit, and B, that machete must choose when it wants to be sharp or dull as a doorknob. He also towers over every other version of Jason. However, the fact he is so damn slow really takes away points from him. So long as you're aware of his presence, you can get the hell out of there and start a family before he's even left campgrounds. But he does endure some serious damage and keeps pushing. Also, he took on Freddy Krueger, so bonus points. Finally, there's Remake Jason, who is definitely the most tactical and the fastest. However, in terms of strength and durability, he falls drastically behind the rest, only displaying the same level of strength for someone his size that is physically fit. And as far as durability goes, we really only see him take the wood chipper to the back of the head and he comes back from it. While that is impressive, there's not enough to say he'd beat parts 3 and 4 in my mind, so I'd happily place him after 2 but before 3. Now then, having discussed each version of Jason either in depth or briefly, I'm ready to give you the ranking, which I will make quick. Number 13, in the weakest spot, we have Part 1. I don't need to explain why. Then we've got Part 5 in the 12th place. At the end of the day, while Roy was dangerous and brutal, I don't see him beating any version of Jason apart from Part 1 Dream Boy. In 11th place, we've got Part 2 Jason. Old Baghead is creepy and menacing, but he falls short from the rest on the list. In 10th place, we've got Remake Jason. If he's on the hunt, it'll be pretty hard to escape him. In 9th place, we've got Part 3 Jason. He seems to thoroughly enjoy what he's doing, so that should say everything. In 8th place, we've got Part 4. Facing this guy would be on par with facing a pissed off grizzly bear. Definitely avoid. In 7th place, we've got Part 9 Jason. Definitely could have been cooler in my opinion, but blame the movie for this, which just so happens to be a guilty pleasure of mine. In 6th place, we've got Part 7 Jason. Definitely one of the scarier Jasons, especially if you were on your own. In 5th place, we've got Part 8 Jason. He's very brutal, doesn't waste time, and if he has his sights on you, you better pray for a wall of toxic wastewater. In 4th place, we've got Part 11, aka Freddy's Jason. All I'm saying is you better be aware of him or have a spare Freddy Krueger in your back pocket. In 3rd place, we have Part 6 Jason. The sheer strength, brutality, determination, durability, and murderous rage of this version of Jason is undeniable, but he doesn't quite top the list. In 2nd place, we have Jason X. The sheer fact he takes on soldiers in space equipped with futuristic weapons gives him the slight edge on Part 6. And finally, in 1st place, Uber Jason. A cyborg Jason Voorhees capable of withstanding the vacuum of space, killing androids, and walking through blast doors like they're made from paper gives him this spot. Now then, that was fun. I love every version of Jason, but my favourites are 3, 4, 6 and 7. Maybe Baghead too. Well, that's all from me. If you'd like to see my ranking of the movies, let me know in the comments below. Also, comment what your favourite version of Jason is. And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to get a free old man, and have a great day. Now, I'm off to steal panties from the male camp counsellors.